Hello and welcome to the Game Theory Podcast. I'm your host, Sam Vecenie. Today, Robby Kalland is here. We're doing the second part of our two-part win total over-unders. Look, it's going to be glorious. Today's the Western Conference, but first, let's hit the music.
They do have a timeout. Decide not to use it. Way downtown. Bang! Bang! What's this going to be? Whoa! Are you kidding me?
Hello and welcome to the Game Theory Podcast. I'm your host, Sam Vecenie. But if you watch the tape, what you will see is completely orchestrated this game. Robby, what's going on, buddy?
You know, just ready for another 2 hours of ball talk, man. Let's go.
It's going to be beautiful. So this is going up 1 week about after our first discussion. And it's going to be great. We're talking Western Conference today. I feel like I probably have fewer picks in the West. I feel like this always happens with us where we have more strong leans in the East than we do in the West, but it's still fun to talk about all of these teams because they're also tightly clumped this year, and trying to figure out what exactly to do with them is fascinating.
Yeah, I mean, and I think that's what we tend to kind of end up with is the East. There seems to be a lot more of a clear
separation.
Divide. Yeah, separation between the top teams and the bottom teams. And like we had a bunch of overs at the top. We had a bunch of unders at the bottom because that's just how it shakes out. When you have a conference where last year you had 10 teams that won 46 games, like that's insane. And so how do you figure out who takes little steps forward, little steps back, when most of the numbers are again between 43.5 and 49.5? I mean, that's where you have the meat of the conference. It's a tough thing to figure, but again, it's a lot of fun to talk about. Probably going to have fewer plays, but still going to find a few. We'll find some angles and talk through it. But yeah, I think fascinating conference to discuss. Probably less so to bet, I think.
Yeah, and as always, the way that we do this is we go through every team in alphabetical order. We talk about them in terms of whether or not we would lean over or lean under on the win total over under. These are courtesy of BetMGM and maybe a couple other places that we'll talk through. Yeah, most of them are pretty even and like pretty steady in terms of what they are, but there are a couple of differences. The Kings, for instance, being one that Robby really pointed out to me ahead of time, having a pretty substantial difference in win total based on market. Trying to think anything else. And then at the end, we'll give picks. At the end of each team, we will give do we actually like this as a pick? Do we think it's just lean?
Pass with a lean?
Yeah, that's where we're at. But we give leans on every team. Yeah, That's it. Okay. First up, Robby. It is the Dallas Mavericks. The Dallas Mavericks, their win total is 49.5. Mm-hmm. They won 50 last year. They were only expected to win 46, though, based off of their net rating. They were 10th in offense, 18th in defense, but the defense, it felt like, took a pretty big jump over the course of the back half of the season after they made some acquisitions. Yep. The big acquisition here, obviously, is the addition of Klay Thompson coming into the Dallas Mavericks. Some interesting names that they've added to the bench units: Najee Marshall, Quentin Grimes, obviously. They lose Derrick Jones Jr. I'm intrigued to see just what this team looks like, frankly. Yep. I think it's going to have just a very different feel. Losing Derrick Jones Jr. And replacing him with Klay, for instance, that's a huge offensive upgrade because Klay is still one of the great shooters in the league. It is a massive downgrade on defense because Klay struggles to move a little bit still. And Derrick Jones was, certainly one of the top 20 to 25 defenders in the NBA.
Yeah, it's a big swing, obviously. I lean, my initial thought was over here. The fear is, and we'll kind of get to this, and I'll go ahead and bring it up now. I think with the West, even more so than these, with the West, a big wrinkle in all of this is Memphis. Memphis last year was a 27-win team. They were basically a win. You can almost take off of the top 8 to 10 teams in the West. You can almost take 1.5 wins off of last year that were like borderline guaranteed. That's not to say that some of these teams won't still beat Memphis. And we'll get to what we think about Memphis. But I think it's important out of the gate in the West to note when we're talking about win totals and we're talking about what they did last year, you almost have to take 1.5 wins off of whatever these top teams did, because now they're going to have a real game when they play Memphis. And so if they went 1-3 against, or if they went 3-1 against them, if they went 4-0 against them, like now that's more going to be a coin flip series in the series, or a 3-game series, 4-game series, whatever it is. And so for Dallas, that's an interesting thing to consider. But for me, I think I thought Najee Marshall was maybe sneakily a bigger pickup than Klay, because I think if you add Klay, you had to figure out who your kind of replacement in that Swiss Army knife role defensively was. And in the famous words of Willie Green, what's Najee Marshall? He's just a knife.
He's the knife.
The knife, you know? And so I love that addition. That was a guy that I thought kind of any of those contenders that needed wing help should be going and getting this offseason. If his step forward as a shooter last year is real, like he's hugely valuable to them as a 6th man and gives them a lot of versatility in how they close games. You know, like a guy that could come in. If PJ is not having a good night, he can close for you as your 4. If Klay's not having a good night, he can step in and you can play him and PJ together. Like, he gives Jason Kidd the versatility. If that offense is real, if that step forward is real from last year, I think he's hugely important. I came on here last year. This is the one victory lap I'm going to take. I kind of said Derek Lively was going to be a dude. I said defensively, I thought he'd come in and have that kind of Walker Kessler effect. And like, I'd like take a mild victory lap because I'm not a draft person, but I did have the Derek Lively thing pinpointed, and I'm excited to see what he does in year 2. Basically, when he's handed that starting job now from the beginning of the season, because I think it's pretty clear they're going to move him into the starting role and move Gafford to the bench, and I'm just excited to see what his continued development can be, because again, he's just a perfect fit for what they need. They don't need an offensive playmaker at center. They need a play finisher, and that is exactly what he brings them.
Yeah, so to speak to the Klay thing first,
please.
The way that this offense runs, it should lead to one of two things happening. Either they're going to they should be sitting Klay in the corner like pretty regularly, the weak side corner would be my guess. Mm-hmm. And it's either going to lead to Luka getting more layups or Kyrie getting more layups, especially with how you have to tag Derek Lively, or it should lead to more Derek Lively dunks, frankly, or wide open Klay Thompson stand still spot up threes, right?
Yes.
Offensively, I think it is a literally perfect fit. And it's one that, like, yes, Klay is coming from a scheme that is like drastically different. Mm-hmm. In Golden State, right? Where they would run them off of actions and things like that. There'd be a ton of movement. And while it could take like a minute to adjust, like it might take a couple of months to adjust, I would imagine that eventually they just go, okay, we have like the world's best, like weak side corner 3-point shooter on planet Earth who's like drastically overqualified for this. And he just gets fed open shots like all day. His spacing impact for Luka and Kyrie should be enormous. It should be.
It's him and not PJ. Like that's the difference.
No. It's him and not Derek Jones.
Well, yeah, Derek Jones.
Like PJ is probably on the court for a decent amount of this. Like, it's him and not Derek, who nobody guarded.
Yeah,
they're going from having a guy that nobody guarded to a guy that like you have to stay attached to at all times. Totally different situation. Defensively, look, I think having Derek Lively minutes and then a full season of Gafford should help. Mm-hmm. Like, I think that should really kind of lead them into a more successful situation. So my read here is like, I lean over on this is where I'm at. Mm-hmm. I think I said in the playoffs last year that like, you know, Luka MVP odds feel like the easiest thing in the world right now for 2025. I still feel like quite good about that take, that getting Clay is going to open up the floor even more for Luka and is going to lead to an even crazier season for Luka.
Yeah, I agree. And I would be I might go ahead and take it as the over because I don't have a lot of overs on my board. And I feel like I need to have one that I actually take because I got a lot of leans here in the West for what we talked about. And like, I feel like this is the one I'm probably more confident in. So I'll take it. Let's be Mavs optimists. That always goes well. Let's do it.
I'm in on a Mavs optimist look.
Let's do it. Let's
okay.
Go.
Second team here, the Denver Nuggets, 51 and a half. They won 57 last year. They were expected to win 54 based on their point differential. They were 5th in offense, 8th in defense. Okay. So this team loses Kentavious Caldwell-Pope. They add Russell Westbrook and Dario Saric. Christian Brown, based on everything Calvin Booth has said, seems like he's going to be the starter at the 2 guard.
Yep.
I don't know what to do with this number. Honestly, it's a total stay away. Like no matter what, this is a stay away for me. Where I would never even consider giving out advice to bet this number. But what I would say is this team still has Nikola Jokic. And while everything in like my brain almost says this is an under probably based off of the lack of depth, it's hard for me to actually get there when talking about Jokic, especially when he's still surrounded by whatever Jamal Murray is. You know, I think we shouldn't write off Jamal by any stretch of the imagination. They just gave him a max deal and he hasn't been great for the last 8 months, but he's still a guy that I would expect to be like a 20 to 25 point per game scorer and be incredible. Still have Michael Porter Jr., still have Aaron Gordon, both of whom are the perfect front court fits for Jokic. Where are you on this team?
I'm terrified of it for everything just because Jokic exists and Jokic doesn't miss a lot of time.
Yeah.
I lean under because if Jamal Murray misses 30 games, that backcourt rotation is tough. Russ is fine, serviceable, but like the push-pull of Russ and Jokic on the floor together, I have no idea how that works, dude.
They were 27th in pace last year, and like that's just not how
by
Russ
design.
works.
That's by design, and you're gonna bring Russ in. Like I can see it. Maybe if you're trying to inject life in the second unit, I am fascinated to see how it fits. Apparently, Jokic wanted Russ was what the word was. And like Jokic is a basketball savant. He's not dumb. He knows who Russ is and what Russ does. So clearly he has it in his head that maybe he wants somebody he can chuck outlets to. Maybe that's the vision for this is like he gets the ball to Russ on the move. And so it's not Russell going and crashing the offensive rebounds, but like how long is it going to take Russ to adjust his brain? Because he's such an aggressive guy going to the glass to be like, okay, I got a guy down there who's going to get me the ball on the move at midcourt where I can attack. Like, is that the vision? I could see that working. Some moving parts there. But again, and part of this is like the West continues to get better around Denver, and Denver continues to get worse. You lose Bruce Brown, you take a little step back. You're still good, but the margin for error, as we saw, thinned down. Now you lose KCP, who is your best defensive player, definitely in the backcourt. I'd argue probably best defensive player overall, but Aaron Gordon certainly in that conversation. And you're moving Christian Brown in, who I didn't think took like a noticeable real like step forward last year in a bigger role. And now you're going to say, here's another even bigger role.
Yeah.
It's a lot of questions. But again, the fact that I don't want to take the under and won't give out the under is just a testament to the fact that like Jokic is insane and the best player on the planet. And he might just be a walking 55 win team, no matter who's around. But we've seen like Jamal. My biggest concern is like Jamal didn't look healthy and played the Olympics. And I was like, why is he out there? He doesn't look right. If he's coming into the season already dealing with stuff and still not recovered from the stuff he was dealing with last year, it leans under for me out of respect for Jokic not playing it.
This is a stay away for me for sure. I really, really love what Jokic is capable of. I love the fit of the front court around him. Mm-hmm. I want to believe, like, I think Christian Brown's going to be a really good player for them, for sure. It's just, again, like, it's depth. Like, what if Jamal ends up missing time?
If he's 50 games, this is tough.
It gets really, really hard. If Michael Porter Jr. misses time, which, like, Michael has seasons where he plays 75 and has seasons where he misses the whole season, like,
it's a lot of P-Watt.
It's a big bet on Peyton Watson. Deron Holmes is already out for the year, who it seems like they were trying to bet on. Mm-hmm. Julian Strawther had a good couple games at Summer League, but like, I don't know what that is. So, you know, I know he can shoot, but like, I don't know if he can do anything else. So it's a total stay away from me. Honestly, the number seems right. Like, if I'm being completely transparent, I would have said 51 or 52 wins. Look, for funsies, I will say over.
Okay. Little differentiation.
But like, I reserve the right to lean under based on how many we pick. I think the number is basically right here. Like 51 to 52 seemed right.
I think, yeah, I'm with you.
Okay. Golden State, 44.5. They won 46 last season, top 10 offense, league average defense, made the play-in tournament. I don't know what this team is, but I will say this. They have an immense amount of depth.
Yep.
To where as long as Draymond Green and Steph stay healthy.
Mm-hmm. And Draymond Green doesn't choke people.
Yeah, you know, like.
Always in play?
Who's to say? Who among us, right?
Me, Sam.
Me too.
Me. Who? Like, me. I have never choked someone out at work.
Yeah, it seems like a bad plan. Okay. You know.
Comfortable saying that, like, I'm me.
Also true. Have never choked someone. That's true. Okay. Look, as long as those two stay on the court, they have so many different ways that they can play, right? Like, Kuminga, I would expect, takes a big statistical leap forward. Podziemski, I think, is like a really valuable player who, like, if Steph was to miss time, like, I would be interested to see what he would do running the show at least. D'Anthony Melton's a big add to me. Like, he is the kind of defensive player that they didn't really have in the backcourt other than Gary Payton II, who is still here. But like, not even on my top 12 guys, like, on their roster right now for their rotation. Right. So, you know, you add Kyle Anderson, who's just like a perfect, you know, Swiss Army knife, you know,
Steve Kerr's going to
sometimes run the show a little bit. Yeah, totally. Like, makes the most sense for Steve Kerr. Trace Jackson Davis maybe can take a leap playing the big position. You know, Andrew Wiggins, you know, I hope that, you know, he's doing okay after losing his father finally. But, you know, after his father seemed to deal with a number of health issues, unfortunately. But they just have so many questions to me in terms of how this roster looks, right?
Yeah.
What is the rotation even, I guess, is like, you could tell me Andrew Wiggins is coming off the bench. You could tell me that D'Anthony Melton is like starting and they bring Pods as like the sixth man who can run the show when Steph is off the court. You could tell me that, you know, they start small with, you know, Draymond, Wiggins, and Kuminga. You could tell me they start big with Trey Jackson Davis in the lineup. So like, I just don't know what this roster is right now, I guess is my thing.
Yeah, I think there's going to have to be a lot of experimentation from Kerr, which, I'm sure Warriors Twitter is going to love all of that, as they always do when Steve makes decisions. They're big on Steve trying stuff. But I am interested to see how he manages for so long, I think a lot of what Golden State has basically tried to do is it's been a lot of ego management with Klay and Draymond. Like it just has. And that was a genuine thing with Klay. Like it was, how do we kind of tiptoe around the fact that he's not who he once was, but he is such an important part of this organization's history. Like he is a foundational dude for what they have built there. That is a real thing. And like losing him, certainly you lose a ton of stuff on and off the court. However, does it ease some of the ability to do the stuff that Warriors fans have been begging him to do, which is play Kuminga more, which is play Moody more, which is to try different things, which is to, be more versatile with your lineups, which is to try and move guys around and do different things. And you don't necessarily have to worry about stepping on toes anymore, because like there's certain, like the Draymond thing's not a rotational issue. That's a Draymond sometimes losing his mind issue. And so if you can do that, like, is there a world where this just looks a little better this year because you don't have to deal with that? Like, I think it's going to be easier for Jason Kidd in Dallas to get Klay to maybe buy into a different role than it was for Steve Kerr, just because it feels the same. It feels like the same group that you're with, and you don't want to be the first one to take the step back. I'm interested to see how that plays out. And
so here's what I'd say too, though. Like they don't have, like they can be the same that they were this past year and go over, right? Mm-hmm. It'll look different, but like then even if they take like a small step back and win 45, like you're still over, right?
I lean over. You can get this 43.5 at some books. So again, shop it at 43.5. I kind of like the over because again, like if Steph is healthy, like there's a floor. That dude's still one of the best guys in the league and just keeps you at a certain level. Like he's going to keep you at a 500 level.
Yeah.
500's real close. If that's kind of your flourish, I kind of like the 43.5. I definitely like it a little more. At 44, probably more of a lean.
It's a lean for me. Like I don't feel confident enough in. Yeah, like we've talked a lot about depth. Like in the first round of this that we did. Like to me, a big question is depth always, right? Like, can you withstand if guys go out? This team can withstand anybody but Steph going out better than anybody in the league. They just have so many dudes. If Steph gets hurt, like obviously you're fucked. But like. They can withstand a serious number of, like they can withstand like 3 guys being out and probably being okay on any given night. So it's a bet on Steph's health, right? Like, and I think Steph's going to want to be as healthy as he can be because, he's coming down near the end of his career. And I think they're trying to figure out, can they rebuild and retool a title contender around Steph here? It's a big bet on Jonathan Kuminga being able to pick up some scoring load as well, which he started to do last season. If Kuminga averages 20, I think they probably go over this number. Is where I'm at. Yeah,
I mean, I'm good with a lean over here. I don't know if I want to necessarily be financially invested in it, but and part of the reason I don't necessarily want to lock it up is we talked on the last pod about how in Philly, experimentation is not great for regular season success. And I think you're going to see a lot of experimentation in Golden State. It's a little different because it's not how they're utilizing their stars. It's more how the supporting cast works around them. But I still think minutes are going to be a little uneven until a certain point, and that can be a little tough on guys. So I think they need to pick some guy like Kuminga. Like I wouldn't mess with his minutes because I think he's a guy that just needs the reps in whatever role you pick for him.
Yeah.
But the other guys, I wouldn't be surprised if you're kind of bouncing around with Wiggins and Melton and Anderson and, even Moody thrown in here and there. Interested to see how they handle the rest of those guys. But yeah.
Yeah. And look, they have enough bodies to make trades and do consolidation trades, and they didn't do the Lowry deal. So I think if they make a trade, they're probably adding.
Agreed.
As well. So yeah, the Warriors are a lean over for me as well. I have 3 overs already, by the way, which is concerning to me.
Strong start for you.
Yeah, very, very bad signs. Okay, the Houston Rockets, 43.5. So I have loved talking about this Rockets team, and I will seriously watch I don't know if I'll watch more Rockets games than any other team in the league this year, but I will watch a crazy number of Rockets games because I am fascinated by all of their young players. They have 7 young guys on this team that are incredibly interesting. I think that this number is about right in terms of what it is. I don't think I expect them to get drastically better in terms of wins and losses necessarily.
Yes.
I think a consolidation year would be great for them. If they were to win 41, 42, 43 again, even 40, that'd be great. It's totally good. I feel maybe I'll say this.
Mm-hmm.
I will talk about how I think they can go over after I let you talk, but where I'm at is I don't think that they have the number one option guy right now that typically allows you to drastically exceed expectations by that guy stepping up. Maybe it's Şengün. I'll talk about him momentarily, but that's kind of where I'm sitting and where I'm a little bit worried right now.
Yeah. I'm a lean under here. Again, I think this Houston team might look better, but we're also talking about a team that is going to be heavily impacted by the fact that Memphis is going to be better. This is one of those teams.
Sure.
This is one of those teams that has to play them 4 times.
Yeah. Go ahead.
So if you're talking about, I think they'll play them 4 times. I may be wrong on that. But I think this is, like you said, fascinating team. I think it's pretty safe to say they have the best collection of young talent in terms of just young depth, right? It's crazy how many guys they have that you can say that can be a legit guy on a team somewhere. And I think what's fascinating is they've got to figure out, you mentioned consolidation. They've got to figure out where they start to consolidate the roster, because you can't have them all and you can't keep them all. You can't pay them all. So they've got to figure out this year. I think the biggest, and I don't know if Ime Udoka would necessarily agree with this, but I think from a front office perspective, the number one goal is maintain the level and figure out who your core is.
Yep.
It is, who are the 3-4 guys we roll with? Who do we move to accentuate them and raise the level around them? That's where I'm at. And that is hard to do and also elevate yourself to a 45, 46, 47 win team in the West.
To your point on Memphis. So they beat Memphis 3 times early on last season. The first game, Jacob Gilyard started. The second 2 games, I believe Desmond Bane missed, and the only one that of the big trio that played was Jaren. So, I think that you can reasonably knock 2 wins off of what their total was last season. Say that, maybe even say 2-2. So knock off a win off of their total from last season, right? So you're at 40 wins now. I think that you go 2-2 against Memphis. That's probably a win for you if you're Houston.
It's a really good season for them. Yeah.
Yeah. So you have to add 3 to 4 wins basically right now.
It's tough in the West, man.
It's hard in the West. The way that they do it is Jalen Green takes a big leap.
Mm-hmm.
And Şengün becomes a real player, a real dude. not like a top 25, top 20 player in the West, but like this is a no doubt all-star. Right now, my problem is I don't think they have like an all-star in the West necessarily. Correct. Based off like Devin Booker and Kevin Durant and Victor Wembanyama and Luka. And like, honestly, like I think Kyrie is ahead of the guy, everyone on this team. LeBron and AD.
Edwards.
Yeah. Karl Towns.
I was about to say, is anybody on the team better than Karl? Like maybe right? Şengün can get there. Like that's the tier. Like he needs to cross that tier, right? Like he needs to be better than like a Towns
and like Zion, right? And John Morant is back, and like Jaren Jackson still exists, and Steph is there. Shea, we haven't even talked about the Oklahoma City guys, Shea and
Jalen and Chet.
Totally. So right now, I don't think they have an all-star on their roster, and we can talk about depth until we're blue in the face, but I think it's really hard to take a leap unless you have like a leap from 41 and being a 500 team to, 45 and 37, 46 and 36, unless you have like a real all-star dude. And I don't know yet that they have one. Şengün might be that guy. Like, to be clear, like I'm not ruling out that he's that this year. It wouldn't blow my mind at all, but it's hard. Like this is where it gets hard for Houston. And I would venture they probably win somewhere between 40 and 42 games is what I think.
Yep. I agree. And I lean under
solid year. And
again, like you can still have like you said, you can still be successful in that. Like it can still, like, I know it won't necessarily feel like it, but you can progress and win 42 games next year.
Honestly, I think that is, if they win 40 to 42, I think it's a success. I think they should be happy.
I'm with you. They took a huge leap last year. Like I think it was like we talked about it on the, like we were optimists. We took the over last year. Like we liked Houston. They exceeded my expectations.
They like doubled their win total last year.
And it's really, and again, sustaining that is a sign of progression, because again, the rest of the West got better around you. And like now nobody's surprised by you. Now you've got tape on what you're going to do with this group. How do you adjust to that when there's a little bit more on the scouting report, when there's a little bit, people are expecting a little bit more out of Jalen Green. They're expecting more out of Şengün. I will say this. I think the Steven Adams addition is huge. Because like what he can do for a guy like Jalen Green in terms of creating space as a screener.
Yeah.
Could be really big for continuing that for continuing that leap. I think we kind of forget that they added him, and we'll get to it in Memphis. I think it's a sneaky big loss for Memphis, even when they get back collective, because I think he was very integral to what they do on both ends. Could be really big just for what they do. But again, I think they're just going to have to figure out who their young guys are. And that's going to mean maybe some odd minutes distribution. But like figuring out who your guys are, consolidate, maintain that level. That's a successful season.
Yeah. And the other thing is, like, again, depth wise, like they can maintain any of these guys getting hurt at this point too,
100%.
Which is enormous. So, okay. 100%. The LA Clippers. This is one team that I think Houston will jump. I will say that.
Okay. Yep.
They won 51 last year. Expected to win 49. Top 5 offense, league average-ish defense. They got knocked out in the first round by Dallas. Kind of a strange team.
For sure.
James Harden and Kawhi are still on this team and are still terrific at basketball. I think James Harden's season, honestly, I think both of their seasons were like way underrated. Kawhi was like a top 6 player in the league last year, and James Harden was like really, really excellent in leading their offense. Terrence Mann and Derek Jones Jr., like 2 really high level defenders. My read on what they're doing is they're just surrounding Kawhi and James Harden with like elite level defense and saying, we'll figure it out. Right. Go score us offense. We'll figure out the rest on defense. Right. Yep. Scheme wise. I think there's a chance that they win more than this. Like, I think there's like a real shot they win more than this. This is a total stay away for me. Like, no chance I'm touching this number. The reason that it's I would consider, or the reason I'm leaning under is that if either Harden or Kawhi miss time, this is definitely an under. And given their age, given their injury history, I think it is a better bet than not that they will probably miss time at some point.
Yeah.
Which says to me that under is the safer play, but I'm not touching this because I have too much respect for Ty Lue. I have too much respect for Kawhi. Yeah. And I just think that they have the roster as it currently sits is drastically better than a 40-win team.
Yeah.
Like Harden and Kawhi surrounded by a ton of defensive studs is like an interesting roster construction.
Yep. But
I just worry about like if either of those guys miss 20 games, they might go 6-14 in those 20.
Go get them, Norm. You know, tough. Like go cook. Yeah, I'm with you. I had, so the MGM number was 39.5, and I had a very slight lean over at that number. I think 40 is a pretty good number. A lot of the same things that you said. I have a ton of respect for Ty Lue and being able to coax a lot out of guys. I think, honestly, this is the kind of team where that can kind of work a little better. I think he can get, you know, like I think he'll be able to, you know, there's a lot of stuff about, you know, I think it was Spears that wrote about him over the summer at like USA Basketball. Just like he seems, it's almost like it sounds like he's a little rejuvenated by the chance to coach, you know, and like coach a team up. And I'm interested to see what that looks like because like in the past it's been, all right, roll it. It almost felt a little like roll the ball out and let the guys figure out what's going to go on. Right. And I think he now has a group where it's going to require more of that schematic touch to get the most out of this group. And I think that's maybe exciting for him as a coach, and maybe that's energizing, and maybe that brings some out. We've seen that with Clippers teams in the past with Doc Rivers. Like, I think some of these guys who have been doing it for a while, I think sometimes you get something fresh after years of banging your head into the wall. And I think it can bring some more out, you know, I mean, like, cause genuinely, like, that's kind of what it felt like. And obviously losing Paul George is huge. We mentioned when we were talking about Philly, he had a phenomenal year last year, but like the sum of the parts wasn't as good, you know, like you mentioned Harden and Kawhi had great seasons and Paul George had a great season. They win 51, you know, it just didn't feel like they maximized it. And it never felt like they maximized that group, and maybe taking one cook out of the kitchen helps. Who knows? I will lean over, but it is a firm stay away for the reason you said, which it is really hard to trust Harden and Kawhi to both be on the court for 60 games.
Kawhi played 68. Kawhi played 68 last year. Harden played 72. Paul George played 74. So, yeah, just all those guys. You know, that's a lot of.
That was a lot of health.
That's a lot of health where things like really went right. Norman Powell played 76. Terrence Mann played 75. I don't know. Like, look, as presently constructed, this is a team where, you know, betting the over.
Also, they are really relying on Zubac.
Like their backup big right now is Mo Bamba. If Zubac was to miss time, like that's we always talk about depth with these things, especially this year. And the depth is a real question for the Clippers right now.
Yep.
Okay.
I'll lean over. You'll lean under, but this is no, don't touch. Oh, Jesus
I
Christ,
agree.
It's Lakers time.
Are you ready, Robbie?
Let's do it, man.
The Lakers 43.5. They won 47 last year, but had the biggest differential in terms of expected wins of any team in the league. I believe it only expected to win 42. Look, league average in both offense and defense, had a very difficult strength of schedule.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know who their fifth starter is going to be. I'll just say that, like Austin Reeves, D'Angelo Russell, LeBron, and AD. But I mean, Jared Vanderbilt, Rui, you know, do they try one of the like kids? Like, who knows, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think 43.5 is a low number, man. This is the first time in a while. You and I have long had a sneaking suspicion. It's not a suspicion, like it's based in reality that like Lakers fans are among the most public teams, or the Lakers are among the most public teams in the league. Their fan base tends to drive the number up because they like to bet the over on the number.
Yep.
This is the first time in a while where I have felt like the number is not being driven up, which also like gives me concern, to be clear, Robbie. Like that also terrifies me in a number of ways, but I'm leaning over.
Ooh, boy.
With the Lakers.
Ooh, boy. All right.
Oh, God. Are you about to lock up an under?
No, I'm not locking it up. I just lean under.
Boy.
76 and 71 games each for AD and LeBron last year.
Oh, I know.
That's probably not happening again. Yeah, I mean, look, dude, like it's AD and LeBron. When they're on the floor, the Lakers have a chance to win most any game. Like they don't, but like they have a chance. That's the level those two dudes can reach.
Yes.
And they played a ton. They each played 35 minutes a game. Like those dudes were out there a lot. That is a ton of wear and tear on those two for 47 wins. I lean under because we talk about depth. I don't really trust their depth. I think their big rotation's a catastrophe.
Yeah, look, if AD missed time, like it would be a serious, real problem for them.
Even if he doesn't, I mean, he's already doing he doesn't want to play the center thing again for the 18th consecutive year or whatever. Here's the biggest issue that they are running into. They made 3 gambles last year on player options, and they crapped out on all 3, and they genuinely couldn't upgrade their roster.
Didn't go well.
Like Christian Wood, Jackson Hayes, and Cam Reddish were all, we're going to give you 1-and-1s, and we are going to hope one of you pops, and that player option is either going to get and you'll either decline the player option or you'll pick it up and you'll be a value guy. And not a single one panned out, and they all picked up the player option because not all of them were guaranteed a look at a contract given what we saw this summer. And now you are stuck. And they could not add another big. And it's bad.
It's actually like their big rotation is fairly dire. Now Christian
Wood's hurt. So, dude, it's that for me. That is the thing. Is like there's certainly a world where they win 47 again. Don't get me wrong. Like AD stays healthy and plays 70 games again. Like they can certainly do that. He is a monster. He is arguably Defensive Player of the Year. He has a chance of that every year he's out there. But he doesn't tend to play 70. And if he only plays 55, they're cooked. And even if he plays like 60, 65, I'm not sure they get there.
Okay, so slight counter to this, right? LeBron played 55 and AD played 56 in 2023. Mm-hmm. And they still won 43 games. And like that was a funky year where like the Russ experiment, was continuing, and he came off the bench, and they acquired Russell late in the year, and like they had Troy Brown, and like Pat Bev was on that. Like it was a weird year, right?
Yeah.
They still ended up with close. 43 that year,
sure.
2020 and 21, where, there was a 72 game season, right? Mm-hmm. AD only played 36. LeBron only played 45, and they still won 42 in a 72 game season.
Yeah.
I don't know. Part of me thinks I was like ready to pick this. You've kind of talked me out of it as a pick. I think Reeves is going to have a monster year. Is kind of where I'm at.
You're higher on Reeves than I am, I think, is part of this.
That's probably true. It's probably true. I'm higher on Austin Reeves than you are.
Not that I think like he's like a bum.
No, of course. Like I think Austin Reeves
solid.
goes for like, I think Austin Reeves goes for like 19 to 20, 6 assists and like 4 rebounds this year.
Not sure I'm there.
Yeah. Russell had a great regular season last year. Can't trust him in the playoffs, but like,
yeah,
he's kind of figured some things out. It feels like with the Lakers. I think that they can get away with like the shot creation issues. It really just does come down to like the defense and what they can do on defense.
I like Vando. Like if Vando's healthy, like that's an. But
like if AD misses time, I mean, like good. That is.
Yeah, it's a lean under for me. They were just in such a tough spot to not really be able to upgrade the roster without taking the big swing, and they're still not willing to do that. And I understand why. But at some point, I feel like it kind of catches up. And we didn't even address the fact that, like, I have no idea what JJ really looks like as a head coach.
That's a great point, too.
I have no idea, and I will not, and I don't want to invest in it either way. Maybe he's a huge upgrade from Darvin Ham.
Look,
fans are hoping and thinking so, but
I don't see there's any way where he's a downgrade. I'm just going to be honest with you.
That's fair.
Like I
love Darvin. Darvin's my guy from Atlanta, but like, yeah, it was not good.
I've heard Darvin's like an unbelievable assistant coach. I've heard he's like a really, really good dude, but
relationships guy.
I didn't see it as a head coach.
That's right.
Okay. Memphis Grizzlies. I don't know. To me, this isn't really a question mark. I'm interested. So 47 and a half.
Yeah.
Is the number. 27 wins last year. All of this is worth throwing out. Ja Morant played like 9 games. Desmond Bane did not play many games. Like they were so injured. I think Marcus Smart played like 20 games last year. So they had guys coming in and out of the lineup. The whole thing's a joke, right?
Yep.
The last 2 applicable years here, realistically, for Memphis are 2022-23 and 2023-24. In those seasons, the Memphis Grizzlies won 51 games and 56 games. Mm-hmm. That was a weaker Western Conference, especially when they won 56 games.
Correct.
I think this is an over. I think this is I'm not picking it because I would like to see a little bit more of everything, basically. Mm-hmm. I would like to know a little bit more about what's going on. I'd like to know more about how Zach Edey looks, frankly. Mm-hmm. But this is close to a pick for me.
No. Stay away from Robby. I have it penciled on my board as a slight lean under. I don't love it. I think this number's about right. I think 47, 46, 48 wins is about right for this team. Look, man, I think Steven Adams is highly underrated for what he did for that basketball team. And I don't know how quickly Zach Edey can replace that. I think he was very important to what allowed their defense to thrive with Jaren Jackson playing his best role. I think offensively, his ability to get out in space, set screens, obviously offensive rebounding was something that he's great at. Like his physical presence, and like Zach Edey obviously has the size where maybe he can do this. His physical presence on that team, I think, set a tone throughout that, as much as everything last year about all the injuries that they missed, I think they still just missed that on top of everything.
But they still finished 12th in defense. Like defense was
I understand that. No.
They were.
But some of that
unconscionably bad on offense was the problem.
Sure, but it's not just the defense. I think it is. If you're going to reach that elite level of defense again, like I think his presence helps Jaren to be the best version of Jaren. Like having somebody who is also going to be in his position in the back and can cover when Jaren takes a gamble. And Jaren's gotten better at picking his spots. No question about it. He's a phenomenal defender. He's a defensive player of the year candidate every year he's on the floor. I'm not saying that. I'm saying team defensively.
Yeah.
I think Steven was underrated, but not even just that. I think offensively, while he didn't put up gaudy stats, I think what he did for Ja in the pick and roll game and creating space and giving him room and just all the things that he was able to do, I think is going to be tricky to replace, and trickier than I think a lot of people necessarily think to replace, because he's not the star. He doesn't do the flashiest things, and they get a lot of that back. And I think they're going to be very good again. They're going to be a playoff team again. I just think it's more towards the 6th seed and less towards that top 3.
So here's what I would say. I think Zach Edey does almost all of that.
Okay.
Like that, Zach Edey is like in the same way that Steven Adams is like super tough and physical and like brings a mindset and like a competitiveness. Like Edey does that. Now the question is like, can Zach Edey like move his feet well enough?
Sure.
Right. Like that's my big question. Like
can
Steven Adams
and do the things.
Yeah. Like goes way underrated for like his mobility in addition to the strength. Everybody talks about like
correct
strongest guy in the NBA by far. Like if you talk to any player, you ask them who's the strongest player in the NBA, Steven Adams. Like it's not even a question. He doesn't get enough credit for also being mobile in addition to that strength. Edey is like, I'm telling you guys, like Edey has.
Oh, everybody says he's crazy strong. Like I don't doubt that.
It's pretty wild. The question is the mobility, but where Edey has the difference is he has 6 inches in terms of standing reach and has a 7'10" wingspan. And, you know, to me, it's like you're going to be able to just play drop with them. And I'm sure that that's the way they'll make it work. Right.
Yeah, for sure.
He's also an elite screener. Like that's the thing. Like he's an incredible screener. That was like one of my favorite things about him at Purdue is like they roll him into post-ups instead of like rolling him into lobs. What they'll do with Ja. But he was remarkable as a screener. Like he got space for those guards like Braden Smith like all the time.
Yeah.
Here's the thing that like I'm kind of betting on. I think Ja Morant's going to come out and just be like, "Fuck all you guys."
That's fair. That's fair.
Still like I am still.
You forgot about me.
Yeah. Nobody has talked about me for the last 2 years because of my own issues and because of this injury last year. By the way, when he was on the court last year, he had started to show that that's what his mentality was going to be.
Yeah.
Like those.
I mean, honestly, games, that's kind of always been his mentality. To his credit. That's what made Ja.
In those 9 games, he averaged 25, 6, and 8.
Yep.
Shot 47% from the field, got to the line 7 times, basically exactly in line like with his career numbers. Sure. I think we see even more. Like, I think that dude is going to come out and just like literally.
I don't want this to come off as me saying like Memphis is going to be bad. I want to make sure that like that's clear. Like again, I think this number's close to right. I had slight lean under, and it's maybe just Zach Edey disrespect. Like it's very possible that.
Well, here's the other thing worth noting though.
But I still don't know how this backcourt all works together.
Well, Ja Morant has never played more than 67 games in a season, right? That was his rookie year. He hasn't played 63 in 4 years. Or he's played 63 at most in the last 4 years. The backcourt, I think, is like kind of easy. Like to me, like Ja Morant and Desmond Bane, we know what that looks like. Marcus Smart is probably the point that you're making, but like to me, Marcus just makes everyone's life easier when he's out on the court.
Again, I just think like we lost that feeling out range.
Yeah, no, it's not wrong. The big thing for me is like you can't lose all 3 of Marcus, Desmond, and Ja again. Like,
you can't. Like they did last year. It was like last year. Like then like.
But like I think if they are missing one, I think they're okay still.
Yeah.
Like if they're missing one of Marcus or Ja, I actually think Dez is like really important to this team in terms of the way it fits. But like if you're missing Ja Morant, you can play Marcus at point. You still have Desmond Bane. You bring Vince Williams into the starting lineup. That team's still like really competitive. Probably one of the 5 best defensive teams in the league at that point, and is like really, really good to me.
Yep.
If you're missing Dez, like it's okay, we just bring Vince Williams into the starting lineup again. Like, you know, not as good offensively, but we're going to be really good on defense. We're going to be killers. Like, I think you can miss one of those guys in the backcourt and still be fine. Oh, by the way, they still have Luke Kennard as like a 6th man who can catch fire and knock down shots. You know, the
Brandon Clark back is genuinely big. Like, I love Brandon Clark.
Totally. Like, it's just truly insane the amount of like injury non-luck that they had last year. Like it breaks my brain. Like this is their top 13 last year in minutes played. So Jaren Jackson, Desmond Bane, Ja Morant. Jaren Jackson, Santi Aldama, Desmond Bane. Vince Williams and Gigi Jackson, both of whom I think started the year on two-way contracts. Yep. John Concher, your guy. David Roddy, who is no longer on this roster. Zaire Williams, who is no longer on this roster. Luke Kennard and Jake LaRavia. Bismack Biyombo. Xavier Tillman. Jacob Gilyard.
That's tough.
They had two players play 1,500 minutes last season. That's it.
Yep.
That like isn't even sensical. Like that's nonsense.
It should be impossible. It should be impossible. They have like 33 guys play or something. Like they set a record for like guys that played or something like that.
It is 33. That is correct. Dead on. Shout out Southeast Melbourne Phoenix legend Matt Hurt. Shout out Melbourne United legend Jack White. This is where we're at. How many players played for the Grizzlies last year that currently play in the NBL? Yeah, looks like only two. But it was a real question there for a second.
Could have had another one. Yeah, I mean, I guess for me it is how quickly can they just genuinely pick up where they left off. It might be very fast, but I think we're going to get what we were kind of waiting on last year, which is like, how do we integrate Marcus Smart into this thing and maximize that? There's still some feeling out there. Now you got to figure out, how does Zach Edey fit exactly? How does that look and feel? Because like it is different than Steven Adams. Like even if he can replicate some of the same things, like we got to feel some things out. And for that reason, like it's possible by the end of the year, we're talking about Memphis as this is the 6 seed, the 5 seed, not a single team in the West wants to take a look at in the first round. Like we might have a bunch of teams at the top being like, do not be 3.
Or they might be the 1 seed that everybody wants.
Or they could be, it could be, there's a lot of variance here. I don't want to touch it for that reason. Cause like you could talk me into a lot of numbers. I just think probably more likely that there's maybe a little bit more rust to knock off in terms of getting back to that elite level that keeps them in the mid to high 40s.
I think you've convinced me this is more of a lean than a pick, but I think over for me.
That's
okay. Minnesota Timberwolves.
Yeah.
52.5 for the Timberwolves. 56 wins last season, expected to win 57. League average on offense, best defense in the league by far. Obviously made the Western Conference Finals. I mean, 52.5 feels interesting to me. So I did say on a podcast recently that like, I think that if you made me pick one team that's probably likely to like, lose more games than what it did last season, it's probably Minnesota, if only because it felt like everything went right for Minnesota last year outside of a 20 game stretch where Karl Anthony Towns missed games. 79 games for Rudy, 79 for Ant, 76 for Rudy, 72 for McDaniels, 76 for Conley, 81 for Naz Reid, 82 for Nickeil Alexander-Walker, 79 for Kyle Anderson. That is their top 8 last season. That is like an impossible level of health to
for sure
live up to again. It would be staggering if that was to happen. I think this number is probably in the ballpark. If I'm being like, I think this is a lean either way. And I would have said 52, 53 in all honesty.
Yeah.
For them.
I lean over, if for nothing else than like, once teams figure out how to play defense in the regular season around Rudy Gobert, your floor is like the 4th defense in the league.
Yeah.
Right. You are a top 5 defense. They have figured it out. They figured it out last year. It took a year. I was a year early on the over. It took a year. They figured it out. And I think it's just keep rolling with that. I really do. Like, I understand, you got to work in some new guys in the rotation. You lose Kyle Anderson. You lose Monty Morris, who didn't play a ton, but you lose some of that depth. You're going to see, like, they kind of need Rob Dillingham to be able to come in and give them a little spark plug. But your top 7 are still the same. There's some question marks a little further down the depth, but I think for me, a lot of that is like, do they have the third guard for the postseason that they desperately need? Or can they acquire him? However, they've got to do it. Can Rob be the guy now? Not sure about that, but like, can they figure out who that guy is? Maybe a question for later that talks about their ceiling. I think the defense is going to be there. I think there's a chance they continue to grow offensively. Another year together, another year where Ant's figuring it out, Cat on the floor a little bit more, raises that offensive rating a bit. I lean over here. I'm with you. I don't want to lock it up because it's a lot of wins in a Western Conference that I think is really good, but I lean over.
So again, I think the number is about right. Like 52, 53 wins feels right to me. Mike Conley has played like 73 games on average each of the last 3 seasons, which is great. Ant is seemingly indestructible, it feels like at this point. Maybe Towns or Gobert missed time. I mean, that's always plausible. Rudy's missed a little bit more time than what people think at times. Towns obviously misses time here and there.
That's why you have Nas.
You have Nas Reed who can come in and like immediately replace one of them.
And he's like his style of play isn't the type that you expect him to miss a lot of time.
Yeah, for sure. And then like, to me, it really is like the backcourt depth question.
Yeah, for sure.
Like, can Rob Dillingham or Terrence Shannon, like honestly, or Joe Ingles maybe as well, step in and be able to eat minutes if one of Conley or Ant goes out? It does just feel like a pretty steady, safe situation. Like, I don't know that there's a ton to talk about with Minnesota. They're going to be one of the 5 best defenses in the league. Honestly, probably one of the 3 best defenses in the league.
Yep.
Ant will probably take another step forward, right? Because he continues to get better every season. And it does just come down to injury luck on some level, where my guess is that they probably don't stay as healthy as they did last year, because that is like, there's one team every year. There's one team every year that's like just that bonkers level of health. Last year the year before coming into last year, it was Sacramento, right? Mm-hmm. Like Sacramento had literally everybody healthy in 2022-23, won a bunch of games, and then took like a small step back last year. I think they lost maybe 2 or 3 games more than what they did the year before. I think that, Minnesota is probably in that ballpark, like something like that. And to me, it's probably a lean over, but there isn't a whole lot to talk about with this team that's like all that exciting. They're really good. They're going to be a playoff contender again. And Anthony Edwards they're more fun to watch than they are to talk about.
100%. Yeah. Not a lot of questions. Yeah. I mean, this is bringing a lot of folks back. And whenever you're talking about like who's the 8th and 9th man, like it's not.
Well, and like it's in the missed games question, right? Like that's
not
really
a fun conversation.
Yeah. So I think we can just move on from Minnesota. New Orleans. Okay. This is one of my picks for what it's worth.
Please.
This is an over for me.
Ooh.
This is a very clear over for me.
Okay.
I know that they are starting a center, according to Fletcher Mackel, in New Orleans, who has been a borderline NBA player for like 3 years now, and Daniel Tice. They have Yves Missy, they have Carlo Makovich, whatever. We'll see. They won 49 games last year. They were expected to win 52 last year based on their net rating. 11th in offense, 7th in defense. They have 6 dudes that are like top 70-ish players in the league, right?
Yep.
Varying levels, obviously. DeJounte Murray, Brandon Ingram, Zion Williamson, all of whom have made all-star games. Herb Jones and Trey Murphy are both like 2 of the best young wings in the NBA, most exciting young wings in the NBA. Even though I think Herb's like 25, 26 now. And they still have CJ. Like, I'm assuming CJ is going to come off the bench right now. This is a loaded basketball team of talent. Like, they are absolutely loaded. They won 3 more games than what this projection is last year. They were expected to win 6 more games than what this projection is last year. Are we really saying that Jonas Valanciunas is
82
that big
games.
of a difference?
82 games of Jonas. Here's my counter to why this is not a play for me and simply a lean. One, hate everything going on with the Brandon Ingram situation in terms of a vibes outlook. Don't love it. Doesn't feel good. Maybe he can put it all aside. I don't really care about him missing like a LA non-mandatory training camp. That's not really where I'm at. I'm just like, they don't want to pay him. Like maybe he can translate that into an FU performance. Possibly. I don't love the fit between Brandon Ingram and DeJounte Murray.
I don't either.
Don't think that's very, very good offensively. I think there's some very cramped spacing on this team. Just because like Herb's not a volume guy. Like I love Trey Murphy. I think Trey Murphy is like, if you're talking about like my maybe hot take with New Orleans is I would build around Trey and jettison Brandon. Like I think Trey.
I don't think that's.
Is that not hot? That's not hot.
I think that's what like New Orleans fans want.
Okay,
at this point, just given that Brandon's contract situation is what it is.
Sure. But like I think Trey is like all-star waiting to happen once he just gets given the opportunity. I don't know when that happens. I don't know when they kind of declutter some of the situation. You talk about it's loaded. It's a much better version of this, but I kind of talked about it with the Bulls where it's like kind of a 2K roster. This feels to me a little bit more like some jumbled pieces that need to be sorted out. There's a puzzle that doesn't totally fit together, even though I like in a vacuum, I love a lot. I think this is a team that is not, the sum of the parts is not as good as the individuals. And that's my concern in terms of a win total.
To counter that,
please.
I don't think that was untrue last year.
Fair.
And they still won 49. And they won 49 with like Brandon missing 20 games, CJ missing 15 games, Zion missed
25,
12 games, Trey missed 25 games, Dyson Daniels missed 20 games, Larry Nance missed 20 games, Najee Marshall missed 20 games. Like,
yeah.
I think this team is just so talented and so deep that like they're just going to rack wins at the end. I do
wonder about the wing depth a touch just because of given Zion thing, like losing Najee, Larry Nance, like those are kind of your guys that backed up Zion. The 4 depth, I think, got thinned out a hair. Yeah, obviously, you can move Herb over there if you need to. You can kind of like Brandon, like you can maneuver stuff, but I just think the front court depth gives me a little pause, as does how it all fits. Again, like there is a world where I think Willie Green's a fantastic coach too. So like, I think he can kind of get whatever he needs to get out of this group. But the puzzle pieces just don't mesh for me a lot. I like a lot of the guys. I don't like that I see Trey Murphy in the like not starting rotation. That's bothers me. I don't feel like we're maximizing what we should be able to do.
We're not, but like we're not maximizing it. A, because the center position is like a catastrophe, but like B, correct, because they have a lot of talent. Like that's the thing though. Like that's the reason that they're not maximizing it. Like they don't have Trey Murphy starting because they have Brandon Ingram, and Brandon Ingram, for whatever it is, right, is still just like an immensely
he's very talented, very good basketball player. 100%.
Yeah. So to me,
he's approaching the Zach LaVine range of like we gotta be able to separate contract talk from on court talk.
He's an unbelievable basketball player. So
fantastic. Some playoff issues, but this is a regular season thing.
To me, I'm still going with.
Okay.
I'm still going with Pelicans. I'm going with this. This is a pick for me. This is a lean over for you.
Lean over for me. This is, we did this with Dallas. I'm more bullish on them. I like it.
Yeah.
Lean over.
Oklahoma City.
That's a good basketball team.
That's a great basketball team, folks.
That's my hot take analysis here. Look at that basketball. Boy, how far have we come from like 3 years ago? It is insane, dude.
57 wins last season. Their over-under is 56.5 for this season. Expected to win 58. Top 4 in both offense and defense. Hot damn. And oh, by the way, they went out and acquired 2 of the top 20 defenders in the NBA, and Alex Caruso and Isaiah Hartenstein.
Yep.
That's pretty good. Yep. I would expect that they're going to be a top 3 defense in the league again. I would expect that Shai Gilgeous-Alexander and Jalen Williams are going to lead them to a top 5 offense in the league again. My question is, and this is like the only real question I have. This is an over for me, to be clear. I don't know if it's a pick. It actually might be a pick, but
yes.
How does their offense, their scheme has been so based on having 5 floor spacers out on the court all the time, right? Mm-hmm. That's what they do. Mm-hmm. Isaiah Hartenstein can sort of like take them from 3. I'd imagine he's, I said this on the last show, like I'd imagine he probably takes 1 or 2 threes per game this year. He does way more than that. He's an unbelievable screener, unbelievable passer, like does, all these things. Has a sick little left-handed floater game. He has a lot of offensive skills beyond the defense that go underrated. It does create a bit of a different scheme and different spacing from what they are used to. And how do they adjust to that? That is my only real thing here.
Yeah. It's how quickly do they get back into the rhythm? Because that was the thing, is they were a buzzsaw. Like they were the team that just up and down the floor. And Hartenstein can move. Like he can, like, I think that's an underrated thing, is he's not a big plodding guy. Like he's not like flying. He's not Chet. Like he's not like flying around, but he can move well. He can play, he can be out in space. And honestly, I think the alternative version of that is you lose some of that 5 out spacing. You add a ton of vertical spacing that didn't exist. And I think that is an area that they can exploit to a degree that they were not able to previously, because Chet gives you some of that, but Chet was also a guy that on the roll, you can bump Chet off the spot, right? Yeah. And keep that. Not with Hartenstein. Like you're not going to be able to do that as easily with him. And so what does that open up? What does that allow them to, because we saw in the playoffs, and obviously this is more of a playoff question. And I agree with you that there's going to be a learning curve, and and for a total this high, I'm with you. Like that is the concern, is they come out the first 15 games a little sluggish. And if that happens, then you kind of are in a real bind with an over. But like, dude, I think there's potential where they look even better because they have more of a lob threat. They have more of a rim threat. They have better rebounding. They can offensive rebound. Like there's a world where they get more looks. They get more possessions. This could be terrifying. Oh, and by the way, you bring in Caruso off the bench. Caruso can get on the glass.
Yeah, like the counter to what I'm saying is like, well, they had Giddey already on the court with the starters, and like teams generally didn't guard Giddey.
Right.
So like the Rockets.
Now you have to worry about at least.
Yeah, they guarded Giddey with, Şengün, right? In half court settings. So, I understand the counter to it. I'm sort of just playing here because I think the Thunder are going to win 60 games, like to be clear, but I've been very clear. This is my title pick. They are going to win 60 games. Like I'm in on this team, like full scale.
It's important to have the conversation because again, like there is a world where they come out at like 10-5 out of the gate, which is still good, but it's just like the pace you need, you get a little off. Like they're 10-5, 10-6 because the spacing's different. They're feeling it out. There's some turnovers. There's this and that. But like once they get rolling, once it clicks, this is going to be a terrifying basketball team.
Yeah, 100%.
Moving on.
I don't really have many other concerns.
Nope. Keep it moving.
Yeah. This is an over for me. This is an over
I
for
agree.
you.
Yep.
Is this a pick or is this a we are leaning?
Let's pick it.
Let's pick it. I'm in. Okay.
It. I need 5. So I've only got 3 more left. So.
Okay. So the Phoenix Suns, 47.5 They won 49 last year. Top 10 in offense, top 13 in defense. New coach, Frank Vogel, is no longer there. Mike Budenholzer is there. Mike Budenholzer has tended to be a juggernaut in the regular season.
Very good.
And they've got deeper this year.
Correct.
They have Tyus Jones. That is an upgrade. They have Mason Plumlee, who's an upgrade on Drew Eubanks, to be clear. I think this is an over.
I have lean over, but I'm willing to be talked into it. I
don't know that it's a pick for what it's worth.
Okay.
I'm generally with you that I don't know that I trust Bradley Beal and Kevin Durant to like play the number of games that they have to for this to be a pick.
I'm with you.
But if they both play 65, 70 games, I think they this is like 51, 52, like pretty easy.
Agree.
Yeah. So, go ahead.
No, I mean, they have a point guard, which is an upgrade over last year. We talked about it. Seriously, they went last year without a point guard. Frank kind of got hosed there, but anyway, we talked about it with the Wizards. Like Tyus Jones is not a guy that's like winning you games by himself, but he's helpful for what the Suns need. Like another guy that can initiate offense, another guy that's not going to make, he's not going to make mistakes. He's not going to ruin their flow. He's not going to you're not worried about, okay, Tyus Jones steps in. How do we integrate him into the offense with, Durant and Booker and Beal?
And he moves it quick too, is the big thing.
And so,
he's
you don't have to worry about sticking.
And he's a 40% catch and shoot 3-point shooter.
Yeah. It's a great addition. You mentioned a little bit better depth in the back end. That's good. But for me, it's really like you have an actual point guard. They won 49 games without a point guard. And Booker, obviously point book, but that's insane. Like they just didn't have anybody really to handle things off the bench. They still did that because they're crazy talented and Kevin Durant's a monster and Devin Booker is maybe underrated. And also I think something that's huge for them is I think Booker learned how to play a different style of basketball playing for USA Basketball and learned he can be really good at it and learned he can get praise for it. Sneaky big for a guy for a guy who's been a superstar. He learned how to play a different role. He learned how to play a secondary and can thrive. That's big. That is, I think that's a sneaky thing. And maybe that comes into play more in the postseason, but he was a dog defensively. And I think he raised his level this summer going to USA Basketball and playing the way he did. And I'm really excited to see what Devin Booker becomes this season because of it.
Yeah. And look, he played at the 2021 Olympics, but it was still he was becoming the superstar that he is now at that point.
Yeah. It was a different, he was, Steve Kerr said he was the MVP of the team. It was such a different experience for him.
Yeah. To me, this is a team that I think has a real shot to win 52, 53 games. If things really break right, it's just the injury question as to why
so
I can't
financially.
Yeah. Yep. It just feels, and they don't have a lot of flexibility either to where if things go wrong, injury wise, they're kind of stuck.
No mid-season moves to come. No.
Yeah. It's going to be, but this is a lean over for me for sure. I think they win a bunch of games.
With you.
Portland Trailblazers.
Under
22.5. Okay. So this is going to be fun.
Let's talk about it.
This is a borderline pick over for me.
Okay. Let's talk about it.
So last year they won 21. 22.5 is the number we're trying to aim for. So we're going for 23.
Yep.
Scoot Henderson was really rough as a rookie last year, but started to figure things out late in the year. Anthony Simons missed a ton of time last year. Shaden Sharp missed a ton of time last year. Denny Avdia is a massive upgrade on anything they had on the wing.
Yep.
And you're telling me I got to get 2 more?
Yeah, I hear you.
I just got to get 2 more?
I hear you. However, They're still in the West. The Grizzlies are good again.
Yeah.
The Spurs are theoretically a little bit better. Started to figure things out in the last year anyway, as a team as well. They are in prime position to pull a ripcord at any moment if they want. If things
That's
get off
the concern.
Jeremy Grant could be out of there. DeAndre Ayton could be out of there. Probably not. I don't know who's taking that contract, but
that's the thing. Yeah.
Robert Williams.
But like with Jeremy too, like I don't know who's taking that deal.
I think that deal looks more palatable now than it did last year. I think was he $30 million a year? Yeah. I think somebody take that. I think somebody would take that.
Not as convinced, but it's not impossible.
I think mid-season. I think it's possible. But like, I think there is a place where they are better than they were last year. And I agree with you. They are.
And they lose more games.
And they lose more games because I think there's still another year of this for them. I'm also not the highest on Chauncey.
Yeah, neither am I. That's actually like a big.
So I don't know if he's the guy that gets the most out of this. I don't know about all that. Like, this is not I guess I'm now more afraid of this as a play. So we'll move this to a lean under because you are. I hear what you're saying, but I think there are enough avenues to this being under and still being in Portland a successful season for what their long-term plan is.
Okay, so multiple things there.
Yeah.
Last year, how many wins do you think they had after 48 games?
After 48?
Yeah.
Like 6 or 7?
They had 15.
Oh, 15.
So like they were
decent.
Pretty okay. Like they weren't disastrous. And then they went 6 and like 28 the rest of the year or something, right? Like they were catastrophic at the end of the year. They really pulled the ripcord. I kind of think so here's the case. Scoot is better this year. Simons plays, quite a bit this year, right? So last year he played 46 games. Hopefully he gets like 65, 70. Jeremy Grant only played 54 last year. Shaedon Sharpe only played 32 last year. DeAndre Ayton only played 55 last year. Part of these numbers, late in the year with DeAndre and Jeremy are like, again, ripcord got pulled. But I think that you add in Denny to this group, he's worth way more than 2 wins on top of all of the injury bounce that we get.
Yeah.
Where they just play more games, right? The other piece of this that like, if they were to be catastrophic next year, and I don't know this, don't aggregate this. For the love of God, do not aggregate this. What I'm about to say.
She's going to go full windy here.
This is totally speculative. This is not me saying otherwise. Are we sure that front office is safe?
Yeah, no, I'm with you.
Like
that's it. That's a fair point.
Because that'd be 4 years where they've won 16 games under Cronin when he got the job, 16 and 43, and then 33 and 49 with Dame, and then 21 wins, and then like 20 wins.
Yeah, that would be what? Yeah, 4 years in a row that they would have pulled a ripcord. That is tough. That is tough. I just
like I don't know, man.
That's fair. That's fair. I don't know if you.
I don't think that. Look, you can because it's like the Cooper Flag draft, and the thing that we've harped on in the East, right, is that you need to pull the ripcord at a certain point to get in this, but. I think they can win enough games and still pull the ripcord.
That's fair. I mean, I guess part of it for me is like part of it is looking at where I'm at positionally. I have from the East, I have the Nets and the Wizards under in terms of the low teams, but I have Pistons over.
Yeah.
Here, I'm going to have Utah, I think we're both going to have Utah. Spoiler alert.
Yeah.
And then there's nobody else really in play. Like, is it just going to be a 3-team breakaway? Like, maybe I'm wrong on somebody else, but like, I don't know. Like, again, because of this draft, I think they could probably still maybe get away with it. That was a lot of words that shouldn't go together. Probably still maybe. Jesus Christ, Robbie. Could maybe get away with it. And I don't know. I think they could move some guys and just say, like, especially if Scoot looks better and they're still not winning.
If Scoot looks better, they're skying way over this, I think. Okay. Because they'll have Denny, they'll have Jeremy Grant. They have like a real starting 5 if Scoot looks better.
They do. I'm like one of the last people who thinks DeAndre Ayton's like a good NBA player, but that's maybe just me.
He was good at the end of the year last year. It was rough.
He was good at the end of the year. It's still in there somewhere. It's like, can he do it consistently? Who the hell knows? Probably not for the money he's on. Anybody gonna take him? But yeah, I don't like this nearly as much after talking to you about it. I'll say that. But I'm gonna stick to the guns and say lean under. Somebody's got to lose a ton of games this year.
It's just such a low number.
It's really low. I'm with you, but like, if there's ever a draft to continue doing it, you're in it.
Yeah, I get it. It's just like such a 22.5 is too low for this roster to me.
That's fair. I like a little dissension.
3 more teams. Sacramento Kings, 46.5. They won 46 last season. 45 was their expected total, right around league average in both offense and defense. Add DeMar DeRozan this summer.
Yes.
I desperately want to say over for this team. This is one where I worry about like a hierarchy of the Eastern Conference or of the Western Conference situation.
Correct.
Where they could end up in like the 44-45 zone.
And still having, we talked about this last year. Like we did this exact conversation last year.
So that's actually a good question here though.
Are they better?
Is this a successful team? Or is this a successful season if they go 48 wins, 46 wins, and then have 44 wins this year, 45 wins after the money they've invested in this roster, after going out to get DeMar? I actually don't think that would be a success now.
No, it's not successful. I'm saying they could play the exact same way and like take a step back. And if you just brought in DeMar DeRozan, you play the exact same way, like something has gone wrong in terms of what you thought you were putting together, right? Like I don't think that's the case. I think DeMar is a nice addition. Just to have another guy. I think last year, we saw 2 years ago, De'Aaron Fox was like the clutch time killer, right? Like he was just unbelievable taking over games late. Teams last year took a little bit of a different approach to the Kings, and it became a little harder, right? Like this offense wasn't as explosive. 13th in offensive rating is not where the Kings want to be. Now they improved defensively, and that's a credit. Mike Brown is great at coaching a defense. Another year in that system. That makes me bullish on them in the fact that they made that stride defensively we wanted to see, right? Like we asked that, can you make that stride defensively? But they took the step back offensively. You add DeMar DeRozan, who is not like an elite level defender, but like, can he give you something similar to what close enough to what Harrison Barnes was doing? I think he can. Like
DeMar is a serious upgrade on Barnes. Barnes was
okay. Like, well, I'm just saying defensive. So now you add another guy that can create, like for himself, like for all of Sabonis's greatness as a creator for others, creating the offense himself is not his greatest strength. Like he's not going to face you up and absolutely kill you in the way that you have to respect him in the same way you'd have to respect DeMar. And this should open some more stuff up for Sabonis. Like, I'm interested to see how the spacing works because I think DeMar and DeMontis kind of can work in similar areas on the floor. I'm interested to see how they kind of space it out and figure out how they get them both in their spots. But like, there's a world where this works really, really nicely. And DeMar is the kind of upgrade offensively that they need in terms of, we have a second guy we can go to and give the ball when De'Aaron is getting a ton of attention. And
that was kind of Malik though too. And like, there's a little bit of overlap there. It's an interesting fit. Like I like DeMar. Like I love DeMar as a player. I think I've made no secret of that on this show throughout the years, but I worry about is there like real overlap with DeMar and Malik? Because Malik has been such a critical player for them over the last few years. How do you get the best rosters out there, or how do you get the best lineups out there? Yep. And 3, like, how do you end up, or are you kind of stagnating Keegan a little bit with his growth?
Sure.
By not giving him the on-ball reps. But those aren't problems for this season. Those are like more long-term forward-facing problems.
Philosophical,
at least. Yeah, some of them are. I think DeMar helps. I think having just like another bucket getter is like a huge help for them. Defensively, adding DeMar, yeah, like you said, like it can't be worse than Barnes at the end of the day. Barnes was quite poor last year on defense. It's a strange roster. It is. It might really work. To me, this is like the exact win total. Like when it was 44 when it opened, I was like, yeah, I think that's an over.
Yeah, 44 and a half was where it was. And like that's when I had that's when I really liked the lean over. 46 and a half feels I'm less enthusiastic about it, but I got to make a pick. And like, I guess like I'd like to, I don't know. I like Kings fans, man. I think
I do too.
I think that's coloring my general like approach to this, which is not what you should do betting, which again, don't bet this. This is a stay.
That's where I'm at. Like it's total lean.
I lean over, and it's a vibes based play for me. I want the beam to be lit.
I'm going to lean under by the hook. I'm going to say they win 46 again, but it's like a total stay away. They're going to be good. So they're a playing team. Like they'll be excellent again.
Real quick for you though. If they win 46 and they're the 9-10, what happens this next summer?
I mean, they've kind of backed themselves into a spot where
it's just this.
I think it's kind of just this. Yeah. You try to move Herter, which I'm sure they'll try and do in season. And the one where you'd have to make a choice is next summer would be the one where, okay, if we really want to go all in before we pay Keegan, we would consider moving Keegan for a star is what you would do. But my guess is that they're just going to pay Keegan, which they should. Like Keegan's really, really good. I'm not saying that like they shouldn't do that. I think they should just pay Keegan, but I'm just interested to see kind of how that would go. Cause like you said at the beginning, like if it's 45 wins this year, and you just did all this, I don't think that's going to sit real well. Yeah. I mean, look, the way that they've set things up, they've kind of locked it in to what they are. Maybe you try and move Sabonis, like maybe somebody like just really wants an all-star, right? There are teams out there that love that stuff. Just really want to be like competent, right? The Bulls would probably take Sabonis, I'm sure. But like, what would you get back from the Bulls? Who knows? I'm not saying that this is a good idea. I think they probably are pretty locked into this roster for a minute.
Yeah, you just kind of ride it. Yeah.
Yep. Okay. San Antonio Spurs, 36.5. Last year they won 22. Their expected win total was 26. They were, I think, 8-10 in their last like 18 games. They were pretty competent actually once they started to figure some things out. Top 10, I think, in defense over the last 3 months, top 12, something like that.
Once Vic went to like center full time, they were like pretty solid on that end.
Yeah. This is a big leap for me.
It's too much.
I think it's too much, and I think this is
I think this is Wemby hype. Like we talked about, like where'd the Lakers steam go from the public? Well, brother, it went to San Antonio and Wemby. And
this might be a pick under for me if I'm being completely honest.
I've got it as a pick. It's on my list.
Yeah.
Under. I mean, and that does not mean that I don't think Victor Wembanyama has a chance to be a top 5 dude.
Yeah.
In the league next year. Like, he's terrifying. He is, but like, you brought Chris Paul in, and I thought that was a really good addition. Like, I think what Vic can learn in terms of playing off of a brilliant point guard and pick and roll and that sort of thing is going to be huge for his development. What Stephon Castle can learn, if he's going to be an on-ball guy, what he can learn from just being around Chris Paul is going to be big for his development. And I know Chris Paul says, like, I didn't come here to be, the guy who teaches, but like, he doesn't really have to. Like, that should just happen.
No, he can play and it will teach.
Right. It should just happen by watching. Like, that's going to be the best teaching he does, is like, because you know how Chris Paul, especially when it comes to like Vic, like Chris Paul is going to tell Victor exactly where he wants him to be and where he needs to be at all times offensively. Like, that's how Chris Paul runs the show. And that's what the Spurs team needs. However, 15 wins?
It's a big number. It's a
for
big
Chris
jump.
Paul and Harrison Barnes, who, as you mentioned, not great last year.
Yeah, like a fine shooter.
He gives them some space which they desperately need.
Yeah.
Like, they will be better by not the point Sohan is done. We're not doing that. Like, we have
look like
again.
I talked about this on the last show. Like, they went, I think, 3-17 in their first 20 games, like in part with like the point Sohan and like Zach Collins at center stuff. And then they switched Wemby into the starting lineup at center as opposed to the big, like the 4 spot. And like things just improved. Sorry, they were 3-20 in their first 23 games. And then they were 4-25 in their first 29 games, and then 5-30 in their first 35 games. I think this is way too aggressive, too fast.
I'm with you.
Like, why
especially
are we
given
sure?
the West.
We're certain this team wins more games than Portland, right?
I think so. I would say so. But I also took a lean under on Portland, so I'm not exactly the guy who's sitting here beating the drum on the Blazers. But
like I think that they are.
There's a world where this team's still in the 20s.
Yeah, that's kind of where I'm at. Like, I think they win more games than Portland. I do. Like, I feel, good about that, but I'm not like 1,000% sure.
Here's my question. Okay, here's a good one. Are the Spurs closer to the Rockets or the Blazers as a team? Because they are 7 wins away from the Rockets and 14 wins away from the Blazers on the book. Is the gap that big?
I think they're kind of in the middle of the two, which says
under.
Yeah. And to be clear, like, I would much rather be the Spurs long-term than either of these teams.
100%.
Because you have Victor Wembanyama, you have Vassell, you have Sohan, like all of whom that I really like long-term. You got Steph Castle. I fucking love Steph Castle, as everybody knows. I just don't think Steph's going to be like a super impact player this year either. Like, he'll play and be useful, but
nice defensive piece in year one.
Good defensive piece who can play ball
screens, learning on offense. Going to be learning how to run things.
Getting Chris Paul, to me, is more valuable for Steph Castle than it is Victor. How about that? Like,
no, I agree.
That's kind of where I'm at with it.
I talked to Steph in Vegas, and like he's ready for the master class, man. Like he wants that, and like, again, it's not a matter of like Chris is going to have to be teaching from the bench. Like, it's just going to be like, watch. Like, they should just be like, just watch him. Like, all game, all you're doing is you're watching him, and you're watching film with him, and that's it. Like, that's what you're doing.
Your job.
You are shadowing Chris Paul for a year to just try and learn how you make reads and you process and you distribute and you manage a team. Because if he's going to be a lead guy, that's what you need him to do. especially with a guy like Vic, because Chris Paul is going to know how to handle that kind of a big. Obviously, Vic is super unique and does things that nobody's ever seen. But like Chris Paul's going to figure it out pretty quick how to maximize Wembanyama's skill set. Like they didn't have a dude that could throw consistent lobs to Vic for the first half of last year.
Yep.
It's not going to be a problem.
Yep. No, I agree.
But so again,
and by the way, like they were drastically better when Trey Jones was out on the court too.
100%.
Like Trey Jones could throw lobs to Vic, and like they were drastically better when he was on the court.
It helps to throw the ball to the giant man. It's a simple game sometimes.
Look,
putting the ball in the hoop.
I think this is an under.
Under, but
I don't think I can pick it.
Really? The Wemby respect.
Maybe I can. Maybe I can.
You can pick it.
37's a lot of wins, man.
This is high. 15 from last year.
37's a lot of wins. I think that they're valuing
a good year.
What I think happened here is I think the books are valuing Chris Paul as equal to Fred VanVleet. And I think Fred VanVleet is like, because this is similar to the Rockets last year, right?
Yeah.
Where they add the veteran point guard and the expectation is that the team takes a leap with the young guys, right?
Yep.
I think that they are treating Chris Paul and Fred VanVleet as if they are equivalent when they are not. And I think Fred is.
You can take it a step further.
Step ahead.
Chris Paul and Harrison Barnes as Fred VanVleet and Dylan Brooks.
Yeah, and Dylan is a good step ahead of Harrison.
Agreed. And so it's just like now, Wemby's by far the best of the young guys on any of those teams. However, the sum of the parts of the young guys, Houston also has, we talked about it, like a crazy depth in terms of young guys. And like, I think San Antonio, you're talking about those three, and then they're still trying to figure out exactly what Keldon is. And, you know, you add Stephon and I think, because here's the thing, if they win 35 games, Vic's probably defensive player of the year. He's an all-star. He's probably all NBA.
Yeah.
You're feeling great going into the future. You get an idea of what the best version of guys like Vassell and Sohan are around him, because you're actually building an actual roster right now and you have veterans. So you kind of see how they play off of everybody. And then you move forward and maybe next summer you take a real swing because you're going to have a more money again.
Yeah. Yeah. Under. Maybe this is a pick for me as an under.
Yep.
We'll see what we do when we get there. Last team, Robbie.
Yep.
The Utah Jazz, 29.5. This is an insane number.
Under.
This is the craziest thing I've seen in a long time with the over-unders.
This is the Laurie Markkinen respecters have logged on at the sports books.
Yeah. They won 31 last year.
Yeah.
Can you explain to me why this number is so high?
No. short answer. No, I don't have it. Again, I genuinely, I think here's the thing. Here's what I think happened. I think because of the Laurie trade talk this summer, I think some of the perception around him got maybe overblown in a sense of like he's an extremely good player. He's an extremely valuable player to a lot of teams. A lot of teams would love to add that exact skill set.
Yep.
But as your number one guy, there are things that he doesn't do. And like there are things that you need to supplement what he does best. I do not think the Utah Jazz have those things.
So the case for why this number at 29 is what it is they returned literally all 6 of the guys that played the most minutes on the roster that won 31 games last year.
Mm-hmm.
So top 6 players in minutes played are all back.
Mm-hmm.
Sexton, George, Markkinen, Collins, Kessler, Clarkson. Right.
Yep.
The thing is that Chris Dunn, Simone Fontecchio, Kelly Olynyk, those are the next 3 guys in minutes played. Those guys are all good players. Like,
yep.
Those guys are all like real, genuine NBA rotation players, in my opinion.
Yeah.
and you're now replacing them with like teenagers and like 20-year-olds.
The children
like
have arrived.
Taylor Hendricks, Cody Williams, Filipowski,
Collier,
Isaiah Collier, like Bryce Sensabaugh. Bryce Sensabaugh played last year, looking at the numbers, 600 minutes last year. Taylor Hendricks played 900 minutes last year, right? Like there's going to be a growth curve here in a big way.
Mm-hmm.
And oh, by the way, like I think if they could move John Collins, don't aggregate this again. I say this.
He'd be moved yesterday.
Yeah, I say this speculatively. Do not aggregate this.
Nobody's aggregating.
Jordan Clarkson, like, I'm sure that's a guy that, like, if a team comes calling at the deadline, they'll listen. Like John Collins, I'm sure that's a guy where, like, they'll listen.
There was Walker Kessler trade smoke this summer.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on there.
But it was like they're going to listen to calls. It won't be Laurie because obviously they can't.
Yeah. I don't get the impression that they're like actively looking to move Kessler. I will say
no. That's right.
Yeah. But yeah, like this team has no depth whatsoever, unless like Hendricks and Cody Williams are like ready to go. And I don't think Cody is ready to go. Maybe Taylor is ready to go on defense and can knock down shots from three, but like I like Cody Williams a lot. He's just very young and like very skinny, and it's going to take some time. Yeah, like they need Keontae George to take a big leap to hit this number. They need like Walker Kessler to take a big leap. They need Hendricks to take a big leap. Or they need like Colin Sexton to be like one of the 35 best players in the league, I think.
Yeah. Let's see.
I respect Will Hardy as a coach. Like this is the Will Hardy respecters, I think, have logged on at 29.
That's fair.
And here's the biggest thing. The number one thing here. This team has absolutely pulled the ripcord the last 2 years.
Yep.
Right. Like this year they were, do you know how many games they'd won through 52 games? I'd forgotten this.
It was like 25 or 26, right? They were like 500.
Yeah. They were 26 and 26.
Yeah.
And then they went 5 and 26 the rest, or 5 and 25 the rest of the year.
Yeah.
5 and 26, I think. Yeah. 5 and 25. That's math. I do math. Go to Robby.
That's why they pay you the big bucks.
Yeah. 5 and 26. The rest of the
year. 2-1 against the Grizzlies.
Yeah. Do you think that
another one of those teams that just like, and if you take those away, you're under this number?
Do you think this team has a chance to win 23 games?
Yes.
In their first.
Oh, sorry.
in their first,
I thought you were going to ask for the season. I was like, sure. Yeah, they could win.
Let's say in their first 55. So can they go 23 and 32? I find it very unlikely in the West.
I don't think so. Again, I think the West is a little better. Memphis and San Antonio are taking steps forward. Like we don't think the step forward for San Antonio is as big as the books, but we do think Memphis is going to be right around there. And yeah, man, and
if they're 23 and 32, their season is probably over at that point, and they probably pull the ripcord. Yeah. And they still need to win 7 more games after pulling the ripcord.
Yep.
To go over on this. This is like to me, this is the pick on the board.
Just forget everything we've said about everyone else. We're doing one play. Max bet.
I'm like a little bit stunned by the fact that this is this high. Maybe I'm being too aggressive in assuming that they want to get in the Cooper Flag sweepstakes.
No,
maybe I'm wrong about that.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. I think we get wave the white flag 2025 in Utah.
And the other thing is that if they even want to keep their top 10, they have to finish in the bottom 10 to keep their pick. Because Oklahoma City has right to their pick. Oh,
yeah.
So realistically, they want to finish in like the bottom 8 in order to
avoid not getting pick. Oh, dude. That's even, yeah. Hammertown.
Yeah, like to me, yeah, no, it's still top 10 protected. It's top 8 in 2026. But like still, you want to make sure that you're finishing in the
You don't want to drop. You don't want to be ninth.
Yeah,
and drop 2 potentially. You want to make sure you're at least ninth. At least ninth to be safe.
You want to make sure you're safe. So like, I don't know, looking at this thing, right?
Yep.
Looking at the board, Washington is definitely lower. Brooklyn is definitely lower. And then it's like Portland could be in the mix. You know, maybe San Antonio could be in the mix if things like really broke wrong for them.
Toronto
could maybe be in the mix.
Chicago
could maybe be in the mix.
Detroit.
I don't think Atlanta could like totally pull the ripcord. Detroit could be in the mix if things really break wrong.
You said them.
Maybe Atlanta could, like that's like not impossible.
If Trey goes down early, then yes, but that's I think the only pathway.
It's probably the only way. But like there are ways where they could get to like 9, and it's like a scary lottery night for them.
Dicey. Yeah.
So
or just
me,
like one of the West teams, like there's a potential for somebody to just bottom out that we're not thinking about.
Yeah, totally. So to me, this might be my favorite on the board.
This is the play. If you congrats, you got through 4 hours of the game theory pod win totals to find the one play that we are
find the one that it's just like, oh my God, like what are we?
If you made it to here, congrats.
Yeah.
Lock City.
And to be clear, this is not a statement on Will Hardy. This is not a statement on Lowry. This is not a statement on like, you know, any of it's just they're extremely young. They have very little like veteran depth
in a very good conference.
And they're in a loaded Western Conference where they are the worst team, right? Like they are projected for 7 more wins than Portland.
That does seem high. I think that's
like I'll totally hear out a conversation between them and Portland. Like I'm not saying that,
I think Portland's worse, but
yeah,
it's closer than this. Like I said, like that's why I asked, like, are they closer to Portland or are they closer to Houston? Is the same thing you can play with this. Like it's 7-14 that way. Like it's
they're
way closer to Portland than they are to like a Houston.
Yeah.
Or I guess you could even go like San Antonio or Portland because it's the same. It's 7-7. And
way closer to Portland to me.
Portland.
Yeah, way closer to Portland to me. Maybe I'm too high on Portland. Like that's very possible.
Listen, I'm lower on Portland, and I'd still go there.
Yeah, like I wonder if you could do like a heads up matchup between Portland and Utah, where you get like Portland like plus 250 or something.
You can talk me into that. That's how I'd hedge my league under. Bet the Portland under and bet Portland versus Utah. That'd be great.
That's a winner. Okay. To recap, Dallas, Dallas, you were debating picking over.
Take him over.
So I'm more of a lean there. I'm not like 100% in on that. Denver, lean over Sam, leaned under Robby. Golden State, both lean over, but total stay away. Houston, both lean under, but stay away. Clippers, me lean under, Robby lean over. Lakers, Robby lean under, I lean over. Memphis, I lean over, Robby leans under.
This is
Minnesota.
The we've ever had.
Oh, 100%. Minnesota, we both leaned over on Minnesota.
Yep.
I picked over on New Orleans. You just kind of leaned over.
Yep.
Oklahoma City, we both pick over.
Yep.
Phoenix, we both lean over, but like not really a pick.
Yep.
Portland, I lean over. You've talked me off the ledge a little bit. You lean under.
I hope I'm wrong. I would like to say this. I hope I'm wrong there.
Sacramento, lean I said under, but like I think the number is like dead on for Sacramento, 46.5. You leaned over. And then San Antonio and Utah, we both picked under.
Correct.
Like full scale.
Yep.
Let's see here. How many unders did I have?
I had 8 overs and 7 unders.
I think I ended up with 6 and 9, unfortunately, which is probably bad math on my part.
Yeah, I've got 8 overs, 7 unders. I think I was about the same on the East, so I'm like marginally happy with that. But again, like that was the crazy thing about last year was I feel like it was like the top teams 8 and then the very bottom, which I think in the picks we have, we're kind of expecting that. Like we're both pretty heavy on the bottom teams being under with a little dissension on like Portland and stuff. But I think the teams that we both think are going to be bad are going to go for it, you know?
Yeah. Well, and the thing is with this one too, is the reason there's so much dissension is that these teams in the middle are so close.
Oh, I mean, we're just
that's why
we're flipping coins like
on some of these middle teams.
Yeah, the whole middle is just but like that's also what makes to me this season particularly exciting is like it's going to be another year where 4 through 10 in the West might end up being 4 games. Yeah,
it's possible. I'm trying to see. Man, that Houston lock up the over, baby. We nailed that last year. That's a good one.
Yeah.
That was a good one.
Houston and Orlando were our two
big ones.
Hits. Those were the 2 best hits. I think I had either Charlotte or Washington. I think I had Charlotte and it was incorrect.
Yeah. Sometimes that'll happen when guys get hurt, right? Okay, Robby.
Yep.
Tell the people where they can find your work. Tell the people what's going on.
Find me over at Uprock Sports, Magazine. You can follow me on Twitter at Arcon, and you can find me on the Punkcast with my guys Tom Fernelli, Chip Harrison, anywhere you listen to the Game Theory podcast.
Go to The Athletic. Keep me employed over there. We will be back on Sunday with more. Bryce and I will talk about something, I'm sure, at that point. Subscribe to the Twitter account that GMAC super producer Andrew Claudio has started. Subscribe to the Instagram account. Subscribe to the TikTok account. Clips. We'll do some fun social stuff as well. It'll be a good time. Go follow all of those things. It'll be amazing. I think that's all we got for now. But until next time, we'll talk soon.